did college, and always my end goal was like own a business that makes the world more fun.
Awesome. All right, we're off to the races. So today with me, I have Chase Taake. Chase and I met a few years ago now when I was working alongside Treehouse, and we were on the hunt for an SDR. So we had acquired Team Treehouse. We were stripping back the sales funnel, having a look the opportunities were, where the weaknesses were, and we realized that an outbound SDR process would really benefit the Treehouse B2B funnel. A lot of companies out there needed to educate their tech teams. They needed to get in front of their developer teams and upskill them into new platforms, but also reinforce the education they had moving forward, particularly getting junior developers turning to senior developers. And so we went to market and looked around for an SDR, and we came across Chase and a handful of others, and Chase rose to the top. Chase was our outbound SDR there for a short period of time. And what we found was Chase was one of those guys that you can't hold down. He was making phone calls, he was landing demos, he was getting stuff done, but it was almost no surprise after about 6 months there, he raised his hand and said, "Hey, look, I've got something else on the go that I'm going to move on to." And in one of those ways, I was happy to see him go because I knew he would be moving on to bigger and better things. As a result, over the last few years, we've stayed in touch. We've been talking to each other quite frequently around Chase's new endeavors. And today, I really just wanted to unpack your journey, Chase, from that time as a junior SDR into some of the other things you've done inside SaaS and outside that as well. So, Chase, do you want to tell us the thing that got me the most during our initial interview is we were asking you about experience in selling. And we said, give us some examples of how you've been able to sell in the past. And you threw this curveball at us around a story about how you managed to acquire a rundown mini golf course. Can you recap that for me and just tell me what went into that back in the day?
For sure. So yeah, that was actually like the beginning of the love of entrepreneurship there, kind of like backstory of it. Me and my friends were sitting down at a coffee shop trying to figure out things to do together. And like back then, the thing that we could do is just walk around a Walmart. There wasn't much to do around us. So I just fell in love with this idea of like, hey, let's make our town cooler. And at that time, I just entered CEO program, which is like a high school program, kind of introducing you to the world of entrepreneurship. And in this class, you had to have a business and you had to make one sale was like kind of the end goal of the class. And I'm like, oh, let's combine these two loves. And I'm like, my business is going to be making the world more fun was the idea back then. I realized that we had this horrible miniature golf course in our area, not a single miniature golfer on it. There's snakes going down the holes and stuff. I'm like, that could be such like the center hub of like such fun stuff if it was like updated, and I could think of so many cool things. So I'm like, I'm going to buy that. So I walked up to the guy who owned the course and asked to buy it. And I probably had like $200 in my pocket. And he said, absolutely not. But we worked out this deal where he said, I'll give it to you for like, it was like $20,000 back then. That was like a number that I couldn't fathom. So I went back to my class. That's what I wanted to do. And I was figuring out how could I do that? I'm like, wait, there's 18 holes. And for a class project that we did slightly earlier, we had these like badges on it. And to do an event that we did for CEO class, we sold sponsorships on it for $100. So I'm like, I'm going to take that concept and do it with the miniature golf course. I sold sponsorships to each miniature golf hole for about $1,200, somewhere more. If there was like a water feature or something, I was like upselling different holes and stuff. So I would go door to door trying to sell these sponsorships. And what they would get is like a sign with their logo on it, contact information, kind of like a feel good donation on there. And where at the same time, I tried to sell them on the traffic that I was going to have going through and the returns that they'll get. It was horrible at the beginning. Everybody was saying no. One guy sat me down and told me why I was saying no. And it was because I was just asking for money and like presenting no value. Like, why would they do it? So he kind of sat me through what could have made the pitch better. He ended up being our first sponsor. And I used that pitch. And I think I sold like 50% yeses, 50% no's after that. Got the money and we purchased a miniature golf course. And that was kind of like my first endeavor into entrepreneurship, trying to get people to the course and stuff like that.
Yeah, awesome. What was it about that pitch you think that was different? Like, how did you have to shift that idea of selling versus to selling value?
Yeah. So first it was, I want to buy this miniature golf course and you can help me buy it if you, Then I shifted it to, hey, this is a place in town that could be improved. Everybody else is going to love it. So I kind of hit the community value. You're going to help bring this back to the community. Two, I plan on bringing traffic to it. So you're going to see a lot of eyeballs on it. And this is a lifetime sponsorship. This isn't for 1 year. You're getting this forever. The sponsorships are still up. So really, it is a good investment because traffic is still going through it. So I sold it at lifetime value. And I just switched it to value focused. Why it would be good if you donated to help make this better. And honestly, it's probably, you're going to have a lot of eyeballs seeing your sign throughout the years.
What do you think now about offering perpetual sponsorship per hole versus maybe sponsoring it for 12 to 18 months?
Yeah. If I were going to go back in time, I definitely would have, switched it to a more annual sponsorship purchase.
Yeah. Was that one of the biggest weaknesses, do you think? And the thing, I know we spoke about this in the past, it's that like once you actually started generating cash flow or trying to continue, you realize that you were kind of one and done with the sponsorships, right? They were your big cash injections. Now you actually had to get traffic on the golf course and actually get people paying to play.
Exactly. Yeah. So at that point, it was like try to get as many $5 people throughout the door. And we were still paying him rent. We owned it, but he owned like the whole property. I was really bad at deals.
Yeah.
So
I think that speaks to a couple of things. I think it's really cool that, you know, you were so ruthlessly focused at the beginning on, okay, I just need to own this golf course one way or another, right? And so you did whatever you needed to do to get to that point of managing the golf course and that set of sort of assets, I guess. And then you figured out, here's all these, you know, hurdles to scale. And that's not dissimilar to what SaaS companies do, right? They'll run out there and start a program, a project or a platform that solves a particular problem, and they'll onboard their first 10 clients. And they realize that, hey, the way we've set up our system actually isn't really effective for scale. But I think there's something cool about that. And there's an ethos that we run across, you know, our network companies about do things that don't scale. And you do it to the point where it hurts. And then you're like, okay, now I need to solve that problem and I need to hire people. I need to reconfigure this. But just doing it in the first place means you've actually got a thread of success there to follow, right? And I think that's really cool. I love that you were able to pivot your style. I think that speaks to maturity in entrepreneurship as well. If you have some feedback that, hey, this is just not working, this is just grinding me the wrong way, and then you're able to change that as opposed to being arrogant, thinking they don't know anything, they don't see the value, it's not me, it's them. So that's really cool too. Yeah, I love that idea. I look for those opportunities now that I've learned that from you. I'm just like, where are these things out there that I could go and just buy for $0, right? Essentially, buy for $0 and do something with it. It's such a cool way. So you finished up on the golf course. You obviously graduated. You moved on to sort of a more standard career. You came to us via the Praxis Academy. For those that don't know, the Praxis Academy is essentially a college alternative for those that are seeking employment inside SaaS companies as a marketer, as a salesperson, in operations. And you go through a bit of an intensive learning program, which includes some hands-on projects, delivering websites, marketing campaigns, etc. And then you become essentially, you know, an eligible candidate for a pool of SaaS companies that are engaged with Praxis, one of which, my suite of companies. We had some really great hires out of Praxis that come to us. And yeah, can you just give us a bit of a rundown of your experience with the Praxis program and how you found that?
Praxis was awesome. I actually, I think most people, it's a college alternative is what they call it, but I actually went to it after college. I wish I found about it earlier because I would have replaced college. But I did college, and always my end goal was like, own a business that makes the world more fun. That was always like my North Star. So I went through college really trying to get value towards that. And I didn't really. I did all the courses that I was supposed to, and it didn't really help. And it kind of felt random. Like nothing like helped me put together my next idea. And then I heard about Praxis, and they connected to startups, and they were kind of a gateway to like working with startups. And startups, that's where I could learn all the skills I possibly need to possibly do my own startup or like my own business in the future. So I'm like, that is my path. So I went through Praxis, and not only was it a great opportunity to open doors to startups like where I'm at Treehouse, but the program itself kind of like changed my thoughts on everything. It broke down like what a startup is very simplistically. And I kind of broke it up into like building blocks that I could understand. It kind of made it, instead of like a huge startup with all these moving pieces, it really broke it down to its core components. It kind of made it feel safer and easier to understand like how startups grow, how they start from zero and how they grow. And it teaches you, I think it split it up into like 4 buckets. It was like sales, marketing, operations, and whatnot. And they taught you skills in each of those categories. So kind of raised your base level in each of the categories, which was amazing. And then helped you pick kind of like which of these buckets you like the most, and then all the opportunities in each of the buckets. And I, at the time, was really struggling with sales. So I chose the sales bucket just to improve it. It was fantastic. They had speakers come in that taught me things that I barely understood at first, but now are like staple to what I do and I apply it to my sales pages and stuff. But Praxis like was fantastic and just breaking everything down and like growing me from knowing nothing really about business. I owned the miniature golf course, but still I was real new at understanding everything to understanding how it works and also growing the skills to get a company to want you over the other candidates. So really like making yourself stand out.
Yeah, it's also, and that's exactly, that's the feedback I've had from a lot of Praxis candidates is the same, is that I think you touched on a really interesting point there about anyone considering a switch into a SaaS company. It's easy to look at a company and go, wow, that thing's huge. Like, how does it work? How does it operate? How does it make money? What is it all about? But when you get under the hood, or you go behind the curtain, you realize there's 3 people spinning wheels as fast as they can, a couple of hamsters powering the infrastructure, and people are just spinning plates, right? Just keeping it all going. But when you do break it down to, okay, here's what marketing looks like for SaaS companies, here's what sales looks like for SaaS companies, and you can see how it fits together. I think Praxis does a really good job of that, and I certainly appreciate the talent we've had from them over the years. I haven't really kept in touch with them. I'm gonna have to reach back out and see what they're up to at the moment. I think they went through a bit of a transformation. They either got acquired or they switched up their value proposition a little bit. But yeah, I really liked the program, and it was great to see. So graduated Praxis, you came to us in Treehouse. We did some activities around SDR work and sales work. And then you knock on my door and you say, hey, I'm going to start a bar and a digital axe throwing business. That's the summary of the conversation I remember there. So do you want to tell me about the next leg of your entrepreneurial journey into that space?
For sure. So I was always, again, North Star of making the world more fun. So I had like this huge sheet of things that I wanted to do. And what I didn't do was pick the easiest starting point with the most scale, which is if I went back in time, what I would change to. Start with something you know will work and then grow off of that. I chose one of my more ambitious ideas it was a bar and axe throwing, but we were trying to completely change it and like innovate and stuff. So like we were going to have our own technology implemented on top of it, a different style than the other bars. Very bad idea, untested. But so we had money saved up. This was me and my brother and a friend who were going to start this together. And we had an opportunity of this location that was prime. Like I was eyeing it and it was open and they knew I wanted it. So they reached out to me and they're like, hey, a lot of offers for this. We're going to need your offer if you want this location. So we put it in and we got the location. Oh, this is going to be so cool. And we've talked about all the things that we were going to do to the location. And very, very quickly, we realized we did not have near enough cash to actually make all of what we wanted to go through, but we bought it, and very bad management of cash. And ran out of cash, and we didn't even buy like the core pieces of the business. So we didn't even have like the thing that could just make the core axe throwing or bar work itself. We had a lot of nice extras and stuff, but could not be used for a business. So that never ended up even opening, and we burned through so much cash. That quickly died, and luckily they let us out of the late, or they weren't going to lock us into it because they realized, dang, these guys messed up. That didn't launch, but we quickly used some of the stuff we bought for an event to try to make that cash back. So we did a citywide event called the Frozen Forest, and it was really cool. I don't know if you've ever seen like themed walkthroughs at night. They're like lit up paths and stuff like that. So that was our, or maybe like one of those drive-through Christmas lights where like music is playing and stuff like that. We were going to do one of those, but roller skating, and it was the Frozen Forest, and there was a storyline and stuff, and there's like Easter eggs throughout it, and it was gonna be like an event. So we ended up throwing that with a bunch of the stuff that we purchased for the axe throwing, and we did make our money back. But I don't know if you've ever seen the Willy Wonka flop. There was an event in America where
yeah. There's one depressed looking Oompa Loompa at the table handing out chocolates. Yeah.
That could have been our event. At this point, I was very good at marketing. I marketed the heck out of this. I'm like, this is so cool. And everybody on the comments were like, this is going to be so cool. Then you go to the event. It is not cool. It was a flop. We really could have been on the news for how bad it was. But kids enjoyed it. So we kind of twisted the value prop. It's just a fun little roller skating rink for kids. We have enough information. The kids bought it. We made our money back that we put into it. And then we're like, we're never doing events again. That was really hard.
You learned the hard way. Yeah. What do you think? At what point? So I like that you said, you didn't even consider building the core first and then building on top of it. You just went with all the bells and whistles, right? You thought this is what everyone's going to love. And I think, again, relating it back to SaaS companies, we continue to build and build and build without validating demand, without actually seeing whether this idea of ours is going to be, absorbed by the market. At what point during that building phase or that cycle of you buying all the extras, getting stuff decked out, watching your bank balance decline, did you even ask the question like, hey, should we be making money yet? Like, what's that point look like for you? When was that?
Yeah, I think at the time we had the mentality like, oh, we're just going to do anything we can to make it work. We're going all in on this. Doesn't matter if we go negative. We'll make it work.
Airbnb, credit card folios, and renting out, putting up designs on the back of cereal boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. Then I think when the account hit 0 and we had 2 bays set up at that point, we're like, this is not good. So there was a lot of freak out moments there.
So did you have patrons at all? Had you had any customers come in at all during that phase, or were you still in build? You were still building?
Yeah, still building. Yeah, no revenue whatsoever from this. Yeah, it was pretty brutal because we still have a lot of the equipment in our lockup. But
yeah, that's cool. Hey, when the next opportunity arises, the next frozen forest, let's jump on it. Yeah. So that's cool. So we've gone through, we had a modicum of success through the mini golf course. We've gone away and learned how to be better at sales, run a company. We decided, hey, here's a flash in the pan for a really cool entertainment hub. Burnt through all your cash. You recouped a little bit of it by pivoting. You're now at a point in time where you've probably been burned, probably a bit run down, bit overwhelmed by that experience. What came next?
Yeah, so each kind of fail, I tried to pick like a role that would help me fix my flaws there. So after the miniature golf course, I wanted to get better at sales. So I put myself through the process of doing that. And I thought that was the real base of being like a good salesman, or a good businessman. So I wanted to grow that. So I did that. At this point, obviously very bad at project management. So what I wanted to do was throw myself into project management world and grow those skills. So I took courses, and then I went to another startup as a project manager. And it was bad at first, but I quickly, because I was thrown into it, learned to swim and did very good for a year of that. Then I also wanted to learn the skills of like product. My next idea was an app. So I wanted to learn product. So I joined another startup in the entertainment space and then tried to learn like how an actual like SaaS was started. I joined at the very beginning. I was the first employee there. So I watched like the creation process of that. And I swayed away from like creating an app, but I learned a lot about like building a business from scratch.
Yeah.
And then those 2 roles that I threw myself in, I think really compensated for the fails of the axe throwing and building the frozen forest.
Yeah. So I think what I love about you, Chase, and I think I've spoken to other people about this as well, is that people might look at a resume. They may have, say 10 years ago, looked at a resume and you see someone bounce around every 18 months. But when you see the gaps they're filling in their resume as to why they were bouncing, and if it's someone like you who wants that personal development, professional development, very self-aware of where your weaknesses are and pursuing that, you can either do one of 2 things. You can grab that person and say, hey, here's a talent stream for you to run in where I'm going to give you that education and that development, but you're at the end of the day still going to be my asset to manage. Or you recognize that there's people like you out there that just want to go and do and get better in themselves and like accept the fact that you might be with me for a little while, but you're probably going to leave and maybe come back into my sort of realm again later on when you're a bit more developed or a bit more well-rounded, right? And so I think I've tried to coach other people on that as well. I use you as an example of the time. Jason, if you remember Jason, our CTO at the time, and I said to Jason in Treehouse, I said, hey, well, he was CEO of Treehouse at the time, and I said to him, hey, Chase is off to do this other thing. And he's like, yeah, I knew he was going to go. He's like, you can't tie those kind of guys down. But that's a good thing. And I think a lot of managers that I work with now, you identify certain individuals that you may hire and you might be put off because they're so driven for professional development and advancement, and you won't hire them. You will forego, 1, that talent in the short term, but 2, that long-term network effect you may get. And I think that's where I want to lead us to now, is that you and I stayed in touch ever since that role in Treehouse a few years ago now. Every couple of months we sort of ping emails, and then you reached out to me and said, hey, Luke, I've just started this really cool new thing. I said, yep, what is it now? And you said, can we have a chat? And because it was from the ground up, right? That's what you were building. And that's when you introduced me to Cat's Custom Rings. And you had started essentially a social media-based business, a sales funnel, I should say, through TikTok. And you saw a few sparks there when it came to the content you were creating and the funnel you were starting to generate. And you really wanted to refine that process a bit further. And we started chatting. And that was, I think it was nearly 2 years ago, we would have started having our meetings, I guess. Like it's been a while. And you guys are going from strength to strength. So do you want to tell me about the inception of Cat's Custom Rings and where you are now?
For sure. Yeah, so I was compensating kind of skill sets there. I knew I always wanted to follow that North Star, making the world more fun. That was always the North Star. But I'm like, I want to be innovative and I don't want to like crash and burn and have to start over again. So my biggest lesson I learned was start with something you know will work, and then create cash flow from that, and then use the profit from that to like kind of be innovative and start stuff that might not work. So, and I think I stand by that. I think that's probably the best route ever. And I wish I started with that. So I was trying to think, what are things that I could do that I know are going to work? My mom owned a jewelry store locally and it did pretty good. Like people knew her, people were coming to her. And I'm like, well, what if we made that worldwide instead of just where we're living? What if we put that on the internet and I could test my skills that I've been learning? Like I know the skills to put it online. I was like, it's kind of a test of what I've learned, and I know it's gonna work because there's online stores and stuff like that. As long as I do it right, I know I can make it work. So I chose that, and we kind of just set up a basic website, and very quickly we had a TikTok blow up, and we had unbelievable amount of people request like a quote, and it was overwhelming, and my mom almost wanted to get rid of it just because it was going to be way too much work to keep going. So I think around that time is when I reached out to you. I'm like, okay, like, and I had the bare minimum set up. I have traffic and I have a place where they can contact us. So I needed to learn from that, like how to build those wheels and those hamsters that we were talking about earlier, so it was actually more sustainable. So I reached out to you, and like little by little, 2 years in the process, like first year, like we had all the traffic in the world, we just couldn't convert them. People didn't trust us because our pitch is like, we'll build your dream engagement ring for thousands less. And it's like, no, you won't, scammer. But so we had to build trust. We had too many people. So like 24 hours of the day where we're manually responding to each quote, creating their 3D designs and stuff like that. So we just needed to figure out like how to like add good friction and stuff like that. So slowly we added the pieces in place. You have to pay $50 if you want to design. There's an automatic quoter. And I just learned the building pieces slowly. And then we scaled it when we grew it. Then it would break, and then we would fix that problem as you were talking about earlier. Fix it, have another TikTok blow up, see what breaks now, fix that. And honestly, that's just what we continue to do. We have a product, another TikTok blows up. All right, we're in the process. Is it breaking, or where can we fix it? Fix that, and then continuously.
I think that's what I've really loved our sort of monthly get-togethers, is that I'm seeing the birth of this sort of idea from inception through to growth, and it's not dissimilar to a lot of the work we do with SaaS companies. In that you described it perfectly. The first thing is you go, wow, well, you were blessed in the sense that you had traffic straight away. You're like, oh wow, we've got traffic and interest, so I've got demand. Now what, right? And that's where you and I sort of look to refining and identifying where that traffic was coming from. Like, was it good? What were the markers of quality in that traffic? How far did they get through the form fields? Could we condense the forms? Could we, again, add friction to weed out those tire kickers, those that were less interested? And we got to a point where I think we started to see predictable numbers per month. And that's when we could start to look at predictable conversion ratios. We now knew that X amount of form completions would equal X amount of quotes, which would equal X amount of revenue. Which again, that was what was really exciting to me, to see that evolve over time, because you're right. You weren't doing major muscle movements. You weren't redesigning homepages. You weren't changing the product fundamentally. You were just tweaking the right levers. And I think there's an element of patience there, being able to display, that other founders are probably less inclined to have. In that most of the time, founders are looking for that traffic source to begin with, and that is the first thing you want. But then once you have it, the ability to identify, for this month, I'm just going to change A, B, and C, right? And see what happens. That's the most important thing. And have the ability to see what happens, right? I remember a few of our early conversations, I'd say to you, oh, can you see when your clients do X, Y, and Z? And you're like, good point. I can't see that. All right, let's figure out how to see that happen. Let's figure out how many fields they actually get through on the form, as opposed to just either enter the form or completed the form. So I think that's great. That's what I'd love to see. And now, we've gone through those sort of teething issues of attribution. So where do your clients come from? We've gone through the ability to identify pretty predictable conversion ratios from when they enter the form, when they complete the quote, when they pay. And you said the things that were like, we're now at the point where, okay, how do we experiment with more revenue? How do we increase revenue, right? The traffic's consistent. Let's now tweak with revenue. Do we offer premium offerings? Do we now go to other channels? Do we now start to offer different product altogether, like complementary products on the side? So that's what's been really exciting for me to see. But what do you see as next? What's next for your next level of growth, do you think?
Yeah, well, I think it's awesome talking to you. Like, I've gotten like major clarity, because there's always a million things that you can do, but looking at the numbers really is like, okay, well, that one, we need to look at the things that are going to fix that problem. So that's just really exciting and really fun to me every single day. I do the numbers every single day. So it's fun to see like, okay, we're going to look at the projects that will help fix that number. Right now, we're still having like a little issues on the sales page. So like, if we were able to like even double that, sure. But like, we've gone through a lot of work and a lot of training like on the sales page. So I'm not sure how much, like, there's not a big lever we can pull. There's not an easy thing that we could do to like double it. So we're looking for simple things that we can add with the biggest output. So easiest thing we could do, highest lever things. I have a big giant list, but I think some of the,
I think we add to the list every month, right? Which is always, racking up new ideas. Yeah,
but I put them in order. And I think some of the biggest, easiest things that we could do are, so some people we do custom rings. Some people don't know how to do that. So we're going to put some of our old designs on the website so people can just straight up buy it. So either custom
here's
or
what
buy
others have bought.
Yeah. And it's very high level, because so many people on the TikToks and stuff say, can I just buy that ring? Because if we did that, if we presented it as an option. And then our next one is ads as well. So right now we are just 100% relying on social media traffic. Some days it's down, some months it's down. It's very inconsistent. So just being more consistent, and also getting like pretty much pre-qualified traffic to the page, rather than Joe, who's 12 years old, clicking on the page.
And I think the most exciting to me as well, Chase, is you mentioned in our catch up this month, you've been able to essentially drop your other side hustle, and this has now become your primary focus, right? You're at a point now where you're comfortable that the growth is predictable, sustainable, the cash flow is there to support you, and you're essentially running now a bootstrapped e-commerce business.
Yep. Just last month I was finally able to drop it 3 months in a row. I doubled how much money I was making with the role. So I was like, okay, I think it's a safe spot to go all in. So, and it's been great. This month has been amazing. I've been so much focused, and we've seen the improvement because of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's the outcome a lot of SaaS founders look for when they're bootstrapping. They're doing the bare bones. They're putting everything they can into those minor improvements, and it might not take 3 months, it might not take 6 months, it might take 24 months to get to a point where you're comfortable that, okay, this is now real and sustainable, and it's actually going to present income for me. That's really cool to hear. That's great. So I think just as a wrap up, again, appreciate you spending some time to talk with me. We've been connected now for a good couple of years, and I love that idea that you've been able to, I really like that you have a personal North Star. I think that's something a lot of people could take away from this as well, is if you think about your professional career, a lot of people may look at it as, I need to do these certain roles. But the fact that you've got like a personal ethos around, making the world more fun, and if that's going to be your star, and I think people could benefit from that. And it's actually made me reflect. It's like, what would I like to do if I was able to do whatever, right? It's one of those things, like if money wasn't an issue, what would you do? From mini golf course to digital axe throwing to a failed frozen forest roller skating experience, through to some other tweaks in the app space, in the SaaS space, into e-commerce and custom ring stores on TikTok. I think you've certainly got an interesting story, and one that I'm really, really happy to be working alongside. Anything else you want to say, Chase, to wrap up our chat this day?
Yeah, well, I just want to like double down on the ethos thing. I talk to a lot of people about that, and I think it just makes everything more fun, because like as you make progress, you're making progress not only in the thing you're doing, but like towards that goal. And I purposely made it broad. It's not like a defined thing. Own an amusement park, because it's a checkbox. It's a broad path where I could continuously do it forever. So I've always got things to do. Like, there's never nothing not to do.
That's the difference between like vision and a mission, right? We talk about vision and mission a lot of the time on building business products. And it's like the vision generally is unobtainable, right? And not because it's impossible, but because it's like ethereal. It's not, it's this thing that sort of sits out there in the ether, and you're like, make the world a better place, right? As opposed to, we need to launch this product by X date in order to receive this amount of income, right? So I think that to you, that's like your personal vision statement. How does the business of Chase want to conduct itself over time? I think that's really cool.
For sure. Yeah. And I know I talk to people who like try to come up with it on their own. It just clarifies things, and it makes things more fun and makes things make more sense. Why am I picking this job? And
Hey, so advice for yourself. Last one before we wrap up. You go back 5 years ago. Advice to yourself 5 years ago.
I think it all boils down to it's okay to have the path, but you don't have to directly pick something along that path. Pick the easiest place to start, the most high leverage thing you could do, the thing that you know will work, that will have outsized returns for the work you do. Start there, and then you can grow off that seed. That's your seed. And then eventually you can do the things that you want to do. Don't go trying to hit home runs immediately.
Awesome. That's so good. I think people probably lose focus of that. They do get, I have to do this job. I have to be in this role. I have to do that. But I think maybe you, with the inclusion of that vision statement, allows you to, like you say, deviate off the path and just, pick the lowest point of entry in order to grow from there. So that's great. Chase, thank you so much, mate. As always, it's been a pleasure to talk. Really looking forward to our next monthly catch up. Yeah, thanks for taking the time, and we'll certainly stay in contact.
Absolutely. Appreciate you so much, Luke.
Awesome. Thanks, Chase.